Mark it 8, dude.
Smokey, this is not Nam. This is bowling. There are rules.
Hey, Walter, come on. Hey, man, it's Smokey. So his toe slipped over a little, you know? It's just a game, man.
This is a league game. This determines who enters the next round robin. Am I wrong?
Yeah, but I wasn't...
Am I wrong?
Yeah, but I wasn't over. Give me the marker, dude. I'm marking an 8.
Smokey, my friend, you're entering a world of pain.
Walter, man.
You mark that frame an 8, you're entering a world of pain.
I'm not...
A world of pain.
Welcome to Truman's Town Hall with your host, Matt Truman.
Hello. This is Matt Truman. Thank you for downloading this episode. Thank you for sharing with a friend. And if you have downloaded part 2 of the big executive session, then you do care about my opinion, and I care about you. So, let's get started. Hopefully you've listened to part 1 of this podcast. I wanted to leave it so that you heard the entire executive session. I did do a podcast, in all fairness, where I chimed in a bit at times when they were talking. I decided against doing that. I decided to break this podcast into 2 parts. One, so you have the full scope of what was discussed May 13th, and one where you hear my opinion and what I think is going on. So first, let's address the situation. The situation that I saw. When I watched the meeting, the one thing initially that stood out was that the mayor seemed to be in a hurry to bring up the alleged charges of a charter violation. We noticed that. Something else that came up was section 4.06, which reads, interference with administration, except for the purpose of investigations under section 4.09 of this charter and inquiries, council or its members shall deal with city officers and employees who are under the direction and supervision of the manager solely through the manager. Neither council nor its members shall give any orders to any such officer or employee, either publicly or privately. Okay, so there's a lot to break down in there. We did hear that according to the city attorney, his opinion, that there were no orders given. So we can take that part off. Now, the other thing is we also heard there were a lot of shalls, and we can get back to that. Remember, that was spoken. Lots of shalls. This section, 4.06, makes mention to the separation of city officers, employees, and the manager. We could go into that more, and we may later, but for now, just make a mental note of the specific separations of those positions inside the charter. Now, they also talk about 4.09. Council may make investigations in coordination with the city manager into the affairs of the city and the conduct of any city office, department, or division, a subunit thereof, or any board or commission. Council may establish investigative procedures by ordinance or resolution. Council shall provide by ordinance or resolution the penalties for the failure or refusal of any person to obey a lawful order issued and the exercise of its investigation powers, and may establish procedures for the enforcement of such a lawful order. So, 4.09 is really not a part of this in my view. There was no investigation. There was none of that. Council did not coordinate with the city manager for an investigation. So 4.09, when they add that into this, that will leave some of us a little with questions. Another thing actually to note is the charging official is the mayor. He and he alone has taken on the responsibility of these proceedings. Whatever the cost may be to the city, it will be his burden to bear, and one that I feel will reflect upon him at his next election. Something also interesting to note is the newly adopted, in March, Rules of Council. In the Rules of Council, Section 13, Complaints, reads as follows. Complaints against employees are to be made to the city manager and handled in accordance with the City Personnel Policy Manual. Complaints, this is important, complaints against council members, the city manager, the law director, the clerk of council, or members of city boards and commissions appointed by council are to be made to the mayor. There was a complaint made to the mayor. Complaints against the mayor are to be made to the vice mayor. Complaints are required to be in writing. Was there a complaint in writing? To my knowledge, no, there wasn't. Moving on with what it says. Upon receipt of a complaint, the mayor or vice mayor shall distribute a copy of the complaint to all members of the city council. All actions taken to investigate and resolve the complaint shall be documented as a matter of record. The mayor or vice mayor will complete a written response as soon as possible, advising the initiator and the city council of the disposition of the complaint. In those cases where resolution requires longer than 10 business days, an interim written response and target date for completion will be provided to the initiator of the complaint and the city council. And it goes on to read, and thank you for bearing with me, this is important. Oral complaints against individual employees by the public or council members at city council meetings are out of order. The presiding officer shall rule the complaint out of order and explain the proper procedure for filing complaints. The above are not to be construed to deny the rights of the public to criticize, state dissatisfaction, or complain about council or city services, but to protect individuals from public censure without the chance to answer specific complaints. Was that done? Was there a discussion that happened where other things came into play outside of the alleged charter violation? I would say yes. So we read complaints, how that's supposed to be handled according to the rules of council. Do you believe that's how it was handled? Now, ladies and gentlemen, listening to Truman's Town Hall, back to the charter, the city charter, the contract between the city, or between the people in the city. Let's get that in proper order. But section 13.08, removal of official. This is long. The mayor and council members shall be removed for cause as provided in this section of the charter. So this is explaining how a removal should take place. As used in this section of the charter, the charging official, which is the mayor, shall mean the mayor, except where the person accused of grounds for removal is the person holding the office of mayor or the vice mayor, where the person sought to be removed for cause holds office of mayor. The charging official, having reason to believe there is a probable cause, as such causes are defined in this section, for the removal of the mayor or council member, shall give notice of the alleged cause for removal and the time, date, and place of commencement of hearing for removal. So we saw, if you've been on Facebook, you saw the letter that was written. which shall not be earlier than 10 days after the service of the notice to the accused person by personal service, certified mail, or by leaving a copy of such notice at the person's last known place of residence in the city. At such time, date, place, at any adjourned meetings, the council shall here provide an opportunity to the accused person to be heard and present defenses, and determine whether the accused person shall be removed from office. The council shall remove an official for any of the following causes by a 2/3 vote of the council members then holding office, provided that if the accused person is the mayor or a council member, such person shall not vote on any matter during the removal procedure and shall not be counted in determining required majorities. Now, look at the structure of council now. Do you believe once they go through all this, do you believe they are going to have a difficult time earning that 2/3? At this point, I don't know. I really don't. It's all up in the air. But here are some of the reasons they list. 1, failure to possess or maintain the qualifications of the office prescribed by the charter. Mr. Otto is fine there. Intentional violation of the prohibitions set forth in section 4.06 of this charter. Was it intentional? In my opinion, it was not. It was said, I believe, that it wasn't intentional. There have been times, there was a letter or an email that I read that they believe it wasn't intentional. Number 3, conviction of a felony, or 4, violation of any express provision of the charter, or 4, violation of any express provision of the charter. Now, this is where they're going to have to make their case. Unexcused absences for any 3 consecutive regular meetings. I'm not going to read all that. So we'll go down to D. Upon the removal of an official from office pursuant to this section, the office of the offending person shall be vacant, subject to any appeal to and review. Okay, so we can skip over that as well until it's time to deal with such a podcast, which hopefully we don't have to. So let's move down to F. The council shall be the judge of the grounds for removal from office and shall conduct the proceedings relative to removal. The council shall have the power to subpoena witnesses, administer oaths, and require the proceeding of evidence either on its own motion or through the process of any appropriate court or officer thereof. A person charged with conduct constituting grounds for removal from office shall be entitled to a public hearing on demand, but in any case a record of the proceeding shall be made and preserved. If a public hearing is demanded, a notice of such hearing shall be published in 1 or more newspapers or general circulation of the city and posted on available public media at least 1 week in advance in the hearing. And in such an event, the charging official may reschedule the time, date, and place of the hearing to accommodate the publication of the notice. If the hearing is rescheduled, the charging official shall notify the accused person of such fact. Decisions made by the council under this section shall be subject to review by the courts on matters of law and whether the council acted arbitrarily and without probative evidence to support the grounds for removal. So essentially, Huber Heights, listeners of the podcast, this could be dragged out for a long period of time. This could also cost the city a lot of money. Do you believe that what has transpired, an email asking questions, inquiries if you will, do you believe that is grounds for removal? And do you believe that is grounds to go through this process? Here's what they talked about on G. Council shall request the county prosecutor or his designee to prosecute the removal proceedings